Passenger Mola, Ewa, shake on, backward, first in, first out, forward marching now, 1, 2, shake backwards, how we roll, I hop up,
Barefoot people, and especially the royal dynasty, is overwhelmed with joy to receive, thank and congratulate the U.S. Ambassador to Cameroon, His Excellency Michael Stephen Hoser, who on behalf of the U.S. government has assisted us in the rehabilitation of the Achum. The Achum is the heart of the Barefoot Palace and therefore the heart of the Barefoot Fondom and its people. We all know what a heart is to the body. It determines whether you should be alive or not. And if you have a surgeon who can cure you of a heart disease, then that surgeon has restored your life and should therefore be close to you and dear to your heart.
The Ambassador of the United States of America, the Divisional Officer, Mayor of Barefoot, parliamentarian, respected professors who have worked with us present to inaugurate this building. Our elders can only recognize this traditionally. And I will be inviting the following personalities.
He is director of Better World NGO. This is F.K. Cole and her husband, Clive Michael.
And the decorations we are going to give you are meant for the people of the US, so that when you go back, tell them the Bafut people have a true friend in the name of the American people.
Here, on this site, the Bafut people were oppressed by a German colonizer. They fought bravely. I have read in this book of the ferocity of the Bafut warriors and the defeats they inflicted on the Germans. Nevertheless, the Germans got through and they burned the Achum. But we rebuilt it again and again. And in the process, we become great friends with the Germans. And so I encourage you, please, continue to teach your children. Teach them to be Bafut. Teach them to carry the values of the Bafut people forward, to guard their culture as they go into the modern world and build a brighter future for all of us. Your Majesty, I want to congratulate you on the production of something. The Tradition and Customs of Bafut, authored by His Royal Majesty Abumi II, Fawn of Bafut. This is an oral tradition and oral history now put on paper that will be preserved for centuries. I honor you, sir. Thank you. Cut the ribbon once again on the heart of your people. Let us...
Okay, we are doing this to strengthen our partnership between the US, Cameroon, and the Bafut people in particular.
Mola, Yewa, shake on, backward, first in, first out, forward marching now, 1, 2, shake backwards, how we roll, I hop up,
Bafut people, and especially the royal dynasty, is overwhelmed with joy to receive, thank, and congratulate the U.S. Ambassador to Cameroon, His Excellency Michael Stephen Hoser, who on behalf of the U.S. government has assisted us in the rehabilitation of the Achum. The Achum is the heart of the Bafut Palace, and therefore the heart of the Bafut Fondom and its people. We all know what a heart is to the body. It determines whether you should be alive or not. And if you have a surgeon who can cure you of a heart disease, then that surgeon has restored your life and should therefore be close to you and dear to your heart.
The Ambassador of the United States of America, the Divisional Officer, Mayor Bafut, parliamentarian, respected professors who have worked with us present to inaugurate this building. Our elders can only recognize this traditionally. And I will be inviting the following personalities.
He is director of Better World NGO. This is Bear Cole and her husband, Clive Michael.
And the decorations we are going to give you are meant for the people of the US, so that when you go back, tell them the Bafut people have a true friend in the name of the American people.
Here, on this site, the Bafut people were oppressed by a German colonizer. They fought bravely. I have read in this book of the ferocity of the Bafut warriors and the defeats they inflicted on the Germans. Nevertheless, the Germans got through and they burned the Achum. But we rebuilt it again and again. And in the process, we become great friends with the Germans. And so I encourage you, please, continue to teach your children. Teach them to be Bafuts. Teach them to carry the values of the Bafut people forward, to guard their culture as they go into the modern world and build a brighter future for all of us. Your Majesty, I want to congratulate you on the production of something. The Tradition and Customs of Bafut, authored by His Royal Majesty Abumi II, Fawn of Bafut. This is an oral tradition and oral history now put on paper that will be preserved for centuries. I honor you, sir. Thank you. Cut the ribbon once again on the heart of your people. Let us...
Okay, we are doing this to strengthen our partnership between the U.S., Cameroon, and the Bafut people in particular.
Voilà. Very well done.
Mo we say e go manyu
Oh no! Petit. Mchemchi vomanyo.
Vomanyo manchoko yomot. Special dedication to Manyu sons and daughters all around the world. Seseko champion Arab money. Ben Alvis, Searchlight Schools, Jonaya Provinces. Executive Director at Global Think and Tank Africa, Joachim Mare, Morsing London. Tata Asaf Akebe Biebini, Eyanga. Dr. Henshaw Ebai, Momanyu, the future. President Desmond Ashu, Mecca, UAE, Dubai. Rambo Mix de Dubai, Montagbari. Everybody on the dance floor. President Daflo, Mr. Ebot, oh no, Enno Rouse, Water, Zidane, Houston, Texas, USA, Enno Soro, Mamawa, Boris Seseku, Boredaji, Atagas Bariawa. Business Gurus, Houston, Texas. Eretineva. Mama is a baby manga. Ne Ashu Jim, Varovese. Cinquième tiva tive qui veut te remanier dans la main. Laissez va quoi. Oh no!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening and welcome to this edition of The Anchor Man. I am, of course, your Anchor Man, Chris Ano, coming to you from the great state of Texas, precisely here in Houston. Houston, Texas is always a privilege to come into your homes with news from Africa, from Egypt from Cairo to the Capes in South Africa and all of Europe, the continental USA, South America. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, good evening and welcome. This is going to be very, very exciting for those of you who are tuning in by way of the social media, Facebook, Please, I would love you to go ahead and hit your share button and let us quickly, in a matter of minutes, 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, have at least 1,000 people tuning in to be part of this broadcast on the social media. For those of you who are joining from all across Africa, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to be discussing tonight a subject which I consider very, very critical, very, very important for as long as the war in the Cameroons is concerned. Talking about the country formerly known as La République du Cameroun and what is now known today as Ambazonia, the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, the former British Southern Cameroons. A week ago, the U.S. government granted the temporary protected status to immigrants, undocumented immigrants coming from the Cameroons in the USA as a result of the war that is ongoing in the two Cameroons. And yesterday we learned that La République du Cameroun has signed a military pact with Russia. Russia is, as you all know, is in the midst of war with Ukraine. But in the midst of that, Russia is signing a military pact with La République du Cameroun. This show is intended to bring to you what is in all of this. What does it mean as far as the war for the actualization, the restoration of the independence of the Southern Cameroons is concerned? Ambassador TIBOR is here with me and will be weighing in with his expert opinion on these subjects. So ladies and gentlemen, please, for those of you again joining in by way of Facebook, go ahead and quickly hit your share button. Quickly hit your share button so that I can delve into this in less than no time. So please, if you are joining by way of Facebook, hit the share button. So in the next 5 minutes, let's have at least 1,000 people saturating the platform, the social media platform. Again, I will be joined in this broadcast by Ambassador TIBOR, former U.S. Undersecretary for Africa under President Trump. And he will be weighing in with the politics that we see going on between La République du Cameroun and the Russian Federation, even when they are engulfed in the huge war that they probably miscalculated. They are signing military alliances, this time with La République du Cameroun. Do not forget, they were just in Mali where they helped the Malians overthrow their government to the chagrin of the French. And now they are going after another French colony, this time La République du Cameroun. How are the French looking at this? How are they taking this? Ladies and gentlemen, we will weigh on to this. But also today, we're going to be talking about a special trip I have read in the front pages of the newspapers in the Cameroon, and it is all about all routes heading to Indian County, with Colonial Prime Minister Dion Ngute heading over there with a delegation, we are told, to get the IDPs back home and to discuss development and employment to the people of India. And the question many people asking is, where have they been for 60 years? For 60 years. How come they're thinking of Indian only today? Could this be because of Iya Marianta becoming the president of the interim government of Ambazonia? Do not forget, Iya Marianta hails from India, just as Colonial Prime Minister Dion Ngute equally hails from India. We're going to be talking about that later in the show. Also, we do not forget, Samuel Ekomesako is out again with another drive when Ambazonian Southern Cameroonians are asking who is actually auditing him for the past two drives of 2020, 2021. Now he talks of 2022 when everybody is demanding an audit for the past two drives. We're going to be talking about that. Lastly, John Frundi is in the news, ladies and gentlemen. John Frundi was on CRTV, Cameroon Radio and Television, proffering a solution to the conflict, the war that is ongoing for the past 5 years and counting. He was asked by the anchor what the solution to the conflict should be, and Frundi suggested that all Ambazonian diaspora leaders should be arrested and extradited to La République du Cameroon to face their law. We're going to be talking about this, ladies and gentlemen. Please go ahead, hit your share button, as I come to you with this presentation. I'm going to come to you first with my monologue, and after I come to you with my monologue, I will then bring in Ambassador Naj, who is joining me from the great state of Pennsylvania. He's actually on the road. So I will bring you my monologue, my talking point, and after the talking point, I will then present, I will then bring to you Ambassador TIBOR into the discussion. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I will now take you into this monologue. And this is very, very important. This monologue, again, has to do with the events happening in the past few weeks between the USA granting Cameroonians the TPS status and Russia signing a deal with La République du Cameroon. Until a week ago, when the US granted TPS to undocumented Cameroonians already living in the country due to the ongoing war, the war situation in the southern Cameroons, Yaoundé had crafted a recurring message. A message they hope the world, at least those who care, would listen to and believe them. The message echoing from Yaoundé since January through AFCON, the African Cup of Nations, till this moment is that the war is over. The message is that only a few pockets of resistance are left. The message is that total peace is finally in the horizon. Life, they want people to believe, is beginning to pick up back. Yaoundé has only fallen short of declaring full victory, something that Paul Atanganji attempted before. But wake up to realize that Ambazonian fighters are still very much in the business of freeing their country, their territory. Perhaps this is the reason why this time they are being a little bit cautious. But this is what has been behind recent optimism in Yaoundé. Yaoundé was recently behind two meetings in the diaspora, both aimed at consolidating the return to peace on the ground. The first one in Washington, D.C., and the other one in Switzerland. In Washington, D.C., barely 2 weeks ago, using as proxy the American Peace Institute, Cameroon brought members of the Ambazonia coalition team together in a full-week seminar, hoping to surreptitiously persuade Ambazonia coalition team toward the ultimate end would be the return of peace to Cameroon. While the U.S. Peace Institute was hosting ARC, Southern Cameroon's chiefs, led by the Fon of Akum, were descending on Paris for a mission many are still to understand the raison d'etre, other than the conclusion that this was another effort, another ploy by the French government to coerce the chiefs to return home and preach peace and cohabitation with La République du Cameroun. The trip to Paris still remains shrouded in secrecy, but Ambazonians see a conspiracy in it, and they may well be right. The timing was very suspicious. While the chiefs were having a field day in Paris with French officials, and surely over some French wine too, another meeting was covertly holding in Switzerland, like the one in Washington, D.C. The one in Switzerland was being hosted by the Swiss Peace Organization. Agbobala was head of the delegation from Ground Zero that consisted of some members of the clergy, newspaper publishers, some fighters, as I was made to understand. Not really sure which fighters they were. And we are told other leaders of civil society back home were also part of that meeting in Switzerland. The Swiss meeting, we have learned, was meant to serve the delegation with some capacity building experience, building capacity for peace. These groups from Ground Zero, Swiss Peace considered them as partners and stakeholders in the struggle. But let me tell you why this backgrounding is important. Last week, I spoke to a very dependable source in the corridors of power in Yaoundé, and he stated that Yaoundé doesn't care. It doesn't care about Swiss urgency and Swiss mediation. Yaoundé is vehemently opposed to any negotiations in which the Swiss government and the Swiss NGO HD Humanitarian Dialogue will be part of. In the place of the Swiss HD and mediation, Cameroon is saying that Swiss Peace and the American Peace Institute can do a better job. That's who they prefer. But guess why these two are being touted as capable of a better job in Cameroon's judgment? Because they are all about peace. Peace without justice to the wrongs that have been done to the people of the southern Cameroons. They are all about living together in one and indivisible Cameroon. The meeting in Switzerland was about preparing Agbobala and those he led there for peace building on the ground. That of DC was a little bit intriguing, but ultimately it was about peace building too. Cameroon is so excited with the two peace institutes. It is vouching mainly their services for anything having to do with negotiations with the separatists, as they call it. Ambazonians should remain very, very watchful of the type of role these two peace institutes are playing towards ending the war. Independence is off their agenda. From these meetings, one can therefore understand the salivation on the faces of Ambazonia blacklegs, as they call it, meeting with Dion Ngute in Yaoundé last week. In their minds, they apparently thought the world has forgotten about Ambazonia, thanks to the war in Ukraine. They were mistaken. The salivation has been short-lived. America has sent them a strong message. A message that is obviously reversing their envisaged fortunes and their gains. In granting temporary protection status to citizens of both Cameroons seeking to stay in the USA, America didn't only acknowledge the problem on the ground, but for the first time, America changed her perception of what is going on in the Cameroons. They used to call it an internal crisis, an internal conflict. But right now, it's just no longer an internal conflict, and it is not a civil war either. It is an international war engaging two countries. Like in Europe, a conflict or war between two different countries. That's the most obvious ramification in what America has done in granting to so many people from the Cameroons the TPS. And this is exactly what is eating deep into the fabric of La République du Cameroun elite now. Going forward, they will no longer pretend peddling the message that the war is over, that peace is in the horizon, and that they are winning. Absolutely not. They will have to actually prove to America within 18 months that they have stopped the killings before they can convince anyone else with that propaganda. What this really means is that the day that America takes up the TPS and begin to repatriate its beneficiaries back to the Cameroons, serve the only moment La République du Cameroun, or anyone else in that matter, can suggest that the war is over, the war is won, and peace is back. As if to compensate for the slam from America, La République du Cameroun resorts to Russia for a military alliance. None of their official media has announced it, but the agreement makes the rounds in the social media. Jeune Afrique news publication has added credibility to the story by running it. Assuming, therefore, as reported, that the alliance was actually signed, the question left on the balance is, what could be the possible ramifications of such an alliance vis-a-vis what America has done in granting the Cameroons TPS? Many Ambazonians want to know, can Russia actually go to bed with Cameroon, in which the French, who oppose Russia's war in Ukraine and whom Russia has attacked in Mali, are the godfathers of Cameroon? Is that possible? Or better still, can France, which does not see eye to eye with Russia with recent events in Mali, allow Cameroon enter into any sort of alliance, agreement, talk less of a military pact with Russia? Can the French allow that? The Russians will most likely ship out some dilapidated military hardware to Cameroon in the days to come if the alliance was actually signed. But can Russia actually send her troops to come defend Cameroon against Ambazonia? Moscow is stuck in Ukraine, and common sense says they won't do such a thing. But the other problem is that no one should expect America to pick up arms to defend Ambazonia against La République du Cameroon. America isn't ready to fight against French interests in this conflict when they remain traditional allies, and when they need each other at this moment, when Russia poses a serious threat to NATO. In my humble opinion, therefore, the fact remains that in spite of this jostling of positions, Ambazonia remains just where it was yesterday. Nothing has changed. The playing field remains level. But Ambazonia has a slight advantage and a window of opportunity. Ambazonia isn't raising for a political transition. Yaoundé does. With a consistent build-up of firepower on the ground, economic sabotage as never before, and every group working in synergy with others, Yaoundé will only in a matter of time cave in. And as they say, no retreat, no surrender. Ladies and gentlemen, that was my talking point. And again, I am now joined by Ambassador TIBOR Nash, who is joining me on the road. Ambassador TIBOR Nash, ladies and gentlemen, again was former Under Secretary for African Affairs under President Trump's administration. Ambassador Nash, it's such a wonderful privilege to have you back here with me again, sir. Thank you for joining the show.
It's a delight to be with you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you 5 on 5.
Perfect, because I like you said, I'm on the road. I'm up here in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and I'm looking at snow of all things, which you do not have in Texas.
I can believe that almost end of April, it is still snowing out there in the northeast. Here in Texas, it shines 24/7.
It does, and I'll be in Texas in a few weeks. I'm looking forward to coming back to the sunshine.
Wonderful, wonderful. Ambassador, you listen to my monologue, my talking point. Please tell me where I am wrong.
Okay, I'm not going to say that you're wrong, because you said one thing which I agree with very strongly, is that this is a window of opportunity. Let's go back. There is, in my view, no relationship between the temporary protected status and Cameroon signing a military cooperation agreement with Russia. You know, those types of cooperation agreements are negotiated for a long, long period of time. So that had been in process for, probably months, if not for years. And as far as I know, that is a successor agreement to the one that they signed in 2015. So I think we have to be careful not to call it an alliance, because it's certainly not. I mean, both Russia, the United States, China, France, United Kingdom, they all have military cooperation agreements with a number of countries around the world. So that's one. On the temporary protected status, I agree with you. I think that is very significant. The United States has temporary protected status with about, I think, 13 countries around the world. And it is both a human rights issue, but it's also a political issue, because you and I both know that there are serious problems around the world in much more than just 13 countries. There are serious problems probably in let's say 30, 40, 50 countries. So the fact that there is this temporary protected status I think is very significant. Now, at the same time, the Cameroonians were given temporary protected status. The United States also gave protected status to a number of other countries. And just before Cameroon, the temporary protected status was given to Ukrainians. So, having seen how these things work in Washington, it's the Department of Homeland Security that actually gives the TPS, but it's the Department of State, definitely the National Security Council, and other government agencies which all recommend which countries need to get the TPS. I can well imagine that that it's a very sensitive issue, that a lot of people say, well, the world pays attention to Ukraine, but it never pays any attention to Africa. That there have been great suffering going on in Africa for a number of years in places like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and when it happens to Europeans and the world, all of a sudden jumps up and down to do something about it. So I suspect that looking around the world, the Cameroonian crisis has been talked about in Washington. While it has not been on the front of the policy agenda, it has been there all along. So, smart people said, if we're giving TPS to Ukraine, then we should give it to some other countries that deserve it. So in that respect, I think, Cameroon definitely came to the front of the line. Now, the term you used, window of opportunity, I think is very,
Ambassador,
very...
we will get there, but I would like to ask you, I don't know whether it's the Department of State or the Department of Homeland Security, but what do they consider in granting this temporary status to any country? What are the factors they take into consideration?
Well, the whole idea of temporary protective status is that people who are in the United States from that country, immaterial of their individual immigration status, that means, are they there on a business visa, a visitor visa, a student visa? Are they out of status, i.e. they should no longer be there? Because that they would face suffering going back to their country, that the United States says that these people should not return to their country of origin as long as they face danger. So in this respect, the United States of America was saying that in Cameroon, there are several areas which are presenting danger to a Cameroonian, whether it is the Anglophone crisis or whether it's the crisis in the far north with Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa. So it is not uniquely focused on the Anglophone crisis. It is focused on, a number of crises around Cameroon. And, they end the status, like during my time, I think temporary protective status was ended for Liberians. So, as you said, now there's 18 months, but after 18 months, if there's still problems going on, it can be renewed for another period of time. Does that answer your question?
It does. Now you also were a little bit cautious. I mean, you made a point that people should be cautious in interpreting what they see with this pact between Russia and Cameroon. What were you trying to say? Are you trying to say that people should not think like it means anything because the French, the China, the Russian, they have pact with America?
Yeah, well, it's not just that. I mean, the United States of America has security agreements with a number of African countries where we provide training, we do cooperation on coastal security. We can sell certain kinds of military equipment. So it's very important that these kind of agreements, to not call them an alliance and think that, in a matter of months, there's going to be Russian troops coming to Cameroon. And as we all know, in Africa especially, Russia has not been using their own armed forces. They have an organization called Wagner, which has been active in the Central African Republic. It is now active in Mali. For a while, they went into Mozambique, where the Mozambican extremists actually defeated them, and they very quickly withdrew. They have been in Sudan. They've been in Libya. So, those are not based on a military cooperation agreement. Governments have contracted with Wagner outside of any kind of formal Russian state agreements or anything like that, because the Russian state is very sensitive and tries their best to say that there's no official relationship between Wagner and the Russian Federation.
So, if you were an Ambazonian, would you be saying, in spite of this pact or agreement reached between Russia and Cameroon, let's still consult with the Russians and see if any help can come from there?
No, if I was a Southern Cameroonian, or we can call them Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, I don't get hooked up in the terminology. I would be looking at this from what your term window of opportunity was, to say to both the Americans, and I would certainly be going to the French and saying, listen, your client, the government of Cameroon, is poking you in the eye by signing a military cooperation agreement with the Russians, especially for France. France and Russia have been waging a huge kind of influence war, especially in the Central African Republic, where the Russians have been going out of their way to try to harm French interests as much as possible. All the things you say about the Cameroonian government, one thing I have to say is their timing on this is about as bad as it could get. I mean, if you pointed out, just when Russia is fighting an aggressive imperialistic war against its neighbor Ukraine, that is not the best time for a country to sign a military cooperation agreement with them. But this, I think, gives a tremendous public relations opportunity to Anglophone Southern Cameroonians to use both with Paris, but also in Washington, because Washington at this stage is extremely sensitive to countries that are committing over the top friendly acts with the Russians.
What do you think Washington will be thinking about when they see the Cameroon military signing alliances with Russia?
I'm not in the U.S. government anymore, but I can pretty well predict that people are saying, "What in the world is Cameroon thinking, signing an agreement with Russia, especially at this time?" Even outside of Russia's aggressive war, if a country signs a military cooperation agreement with Russia, Washington certainly pays attention. And to do it at this time, especially, is literally poking a finger in the eye of the United States of America. You can't say it any other way.
Is it right, in my interpretation, that America's perception of what is going on in the Cameroons has essentially changed? Because essentially they call it an internal crisis, an internal conflict. I mean, you do not grant temporary protection status to an internal crisis, do you?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
We have done it in Liberia, and we have done it in Sierra Leone. We have done it in South Sudan. South Sudan is one of the countries. We've done it in Somalia. Again, Somalia's problem is with Al-Shabaab. So most of the time it is with internal crises.
What?
Uganda, Ukraine is one of the exceptions if you look on the list, because Ukraine is the one where there's an external war going on. But in Cameroon, both, I mean, you could argue that the Boko Haram crisis is externalized, because much of Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa is centered in Nigeria.
Now, this TPS privilege runs for 18 months. When it is 18 months, what is it going to take to convince America that it should be lifted? Or do you think, or is it extendable?
It is absolutely extendable. What happens is when it gets close to the period that it's going to expire, the United States government undertakes a careful analysis of the conditions, and a decision is made in Washington at what we call the interagency level to say, okay, we have the temporary protection status. Should it be let to expire, or are conditions still similar to a Cameroonian having to go back to Cameroon? Will their safety be threatened?
All right. Now let's look at one critical issue involved with this TPS status thing. There is this debate amongst Southern Cameroonians to the effect that often at times these rulings tend to benefit more Francophone Cameroonians than they do Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians, who are actually suffering from the brunt of the war. How does the government, the U.S. government, separate between the two to know exactly who is just an economic immigrant and who is actually running away from war?
Under this temporary protective status, all someone has to be is a Cameroonian. It doesn't matter if they're from, the Central African border, or from Douala, or, any Kusari. It doesn't matter. It applies to all Cameroonians. Cameroonians in the United States, immaterial of their immigration status, do not have to return to Cameroon at this time. And they are guaranteed a period of at least 18 months.
So again, this is about benefiting everybody who comes from Cameroon, no matter where from Cameroon they come from.
Absolutely, absolutely. They have to be very careful. They have to follow the procedures. As with anything else, there's obviously a bureaucratic procedure. There is a form they have to fill in, based on which the U.S. government will determine their exact status, whether they qualify for this or not, and then they're able. Once the U.S. government says that they do in fact merit temporary protected status, then they can stay in the U.S. temporarily. They can apply for a work permit. They are protected from deportation, and those types of things. But it is a legal process, and people have to absolutely comply with the regulations.
Can they apply for green cards or refugee status?
No. Well, the refugee status is it's outside of this. Temporary protected status is different from refugee status. So for that, I am not an immigration attorney, and I'm not going to give bad immigration advice.
So if the U.S. were to lift this temporary protected status, what would be informing them to do so?
The U.S. would lift the temporary protected. They will review it after 18 months. And in 18 months, if there is peace in Cameroon, if there's peace in the north, if there's peace in the southwest and the northwest, then they will lift the temporary protected status, and every single individual Cameroonian who is in the United States, they will revert to the immigration status that they have individually.
Ambassador, you've written so much about this conflict going on in the Cameroons, and oftentimes you are just as concerned as every Ambazonian that the world isn't paying enough attention to what is going on there compared to the Ukraine. I mean, in just about a month, the whole world is about Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. And Cameroon, in the southern Cameroons, where reports say over 30,000 people have been killed, not much is heard, not much is said from the same powers who now want the world to rise up and stand behind Ukraine. What do you make of this?
Well, you and I have talked about this before. The fact is, African conflicts do not receive the same amount of attention in the global media as conflicts in many other places. Whether it is Myanmar, whether it is Ukraine, That is just how the global media operates. That is why it is incumbent on Cameroonians living in the United States, living in Europe, to engage and publicize their struggles. Because no one, we've talked about this before, right, not right, no one is going to do it for them. I get extremely frustrated when I hear from the Cameroonian community that they are waiting for the international community to solve the problem. And I keep telling people the brutal truth is that the international community is not going to solve the problem.
Well, I guess the message is now settling down amongst most Ambazonians because we see what is going on in Ukraine. Now, one of the things that we observed, the world observed in Ukraine, was the discrimination against Africans in particular. When the war broke out, Africans were denied access to the trains and to every transportation system you could imagine to escape the war. Once at Poland, again, they were stopped. They were hindered from entering Poland to certain safety. Please watch it. Take a look at this for a moment.
Decades, Ukraine has courted students from Africa as part of the country's tradition of providing affordable higher education to all. Now, Ukrainian universities house more than 76,000 foreign students. That's according to the BBC, with nearly a quarter of them from Africa and more than 20,000 from India. Now, as Russia creeps across the country, thousands of these students have attempted to flee to safety only to be caught in the grips of racism.
We still have people trapped, like in Sumy in Ukraine. There are students, thousands of them trapped because the bridges have been destroyed by bombs and everything, so they can't move. They are trapped there. No more food, no more water. So how are they going to feed? How are they going to survive?
Absolutely devastating. Joining me now is Kimberly St. Julian Varnon. She's an expert in the history of Ukraine and Russia, and Alexander Santu-Ora, a student at the State of University of Telecommunications.
All right. Ambassador, it really amazes me, it puzzles me how the world treats Africans the way they do. Not only in Ukraine, you find the war in Ambazonia has been going on for 5 years and counting, and the world doesn't care. But the moment Russia throws a bomb into Ukraine, 3 people are killed, and the whole world, the world leaders go amok. The General Assembly of the United Nations is put together. A vote is quickly tabled to vote against Russia, but nothing is done to the conflicts in Africa, the conflict in Ambazonia.
Yes, and your point?
And my point is, what did Africa do wrong? Or what is Africa doing wrong?
Africa's not doing anything wrong. What Africa should be doing is really exerting its own influence around the world. For example, in the United States of America, as you well know, we have a very large African American population. It has frustrated me greatly that there is not more focus and influence given to Africa, because we do have such a large African American population, and for them, Africa should be a huge issue. Now, we do have diasporas, as you well know, in the United States that are very active from several African countries. I can point to, for example, the Ethiopian diaspora, which is politically very active. Cameroon diaspora, to a certain extent, in some congressional districts, is very active. But there is not a unified African voice in the United States to push for Africa as a major issue of focus for the United States government on a continent-wide basis, which is very frustrating for those of us, whether we're African or not, who have considered Africa's importance and who recognize the incredible treasures and riches that Africa presents for the world. So, yes, Africa is not treated the same as other parts of the world, but that has to be changed. And the only way it's going to be changed is by the energetic engagement and involvement of those people who really do understand the importance of Africa. Otherwise, this year the racism is so evident in what happened to the students in Ukraine. Next year it's going to be something else. 5 years it's going to be something else. At what point do we put a stop to this once and for all?
Let us go back to this TPS decision by the Biden administration when Tony Blinken was being voted by the Senate for his appointment as the Secretary of State. One of the hot areas he mentioned America would have to pay particular attention was the Cameroons. But this is the first time that they have now taken some symbolic action in this TPS. Isn't there much more that America could be doing to bring this situation to a negotiation other than just the TPS?
Of course, there's a lot more that America could be doing, but we've talked about this before. Every day there's 24 hours in the day. There are 200 and some countries in the world. There's only enough attention to be given to so many things. And you have all of these issues lined up. And all of a sudden, Russia attacks Ukraine. So that goes to the very front of the line. Imagine there's a cooking stove with so many pots on there cooking. All of a sudden, you put a huge pot on there, it knocks other pots out of the way. That's what I'm saying. To make an issue be at the front of the line, it needs engagement with Congress. It needs constant engagement with the White House. There needs to be ongoing public pressure and a political campaign. Because look around the world, and you and I could go through and probably identify 30, 40, 50, critically important issues of people suffering in various places. So you cannot give attention to all of them. That's why I always try to be brutally honest and truthful when I talk to my friends across the continent to say, no, the United States is not going to fix this unless you apply political pressure, because our entire government is made to respond to political pressure. It's not going to just respond to causes that are just or causes that need justice, because as I said, there's endless list of causes that need justice. What about the poor people in eastern Congo, where you've had 300,000 or 400,000 people die over the last several decades? They get about zero attention. And we can look around the world and find other things. So if you want your issue to receive attention from the United States of America, you have to focus on it and engage on it.
When you talk about pressure, political pressure, I do not imagine what Ambazonians haven't done as far as pressure is concerned. What can they do differently from what they have done? I mean, they've knocked doors, they've carried out protest rallies in DC, they've knocked diplomatic doors in Europe, around the globe.
What they have not done is they have not presented a unified position with one voice from one group, in constantly engaging with members of Congress, with congressional staff in a strategic, focused, targeted campaign. You have different groups, you publish lots and lots of papers, there are lots of words fly around, but there is nothing focused or strategic. You have people that support federation, you have people that support confederation, you have other people that support this, you have other people that support that. Different groups.
But that is a problem, Ambassador. That is a problem. In a problem like this one, you are bound to have different factions that believe in different things. like you mentioned, federation. There is no way we're going to speak the same voice with anybody who believes in a federation. There's no way we're going to speak with the same voice with anybody who still think that we should go back and live with La République du Cameroon. That is the problem, bringing people with different shades of opinion to speak with the same voice.
Yeah. But to me, you're not focusing on the important issue, because at the end of the day, whether it's the people who want a federation or the people who want independence, the truth is they want the same thing, in that they want full rights, privileges, human dignity, fair treatment, and equality for the citizens of the Southern Cameroons or the citizens of Ambazonia. The difference is how you get there and how you achieve that. And if there's a proper focus on human rights, as opposed to how you get those human rights, then the groups could speak with one voice, instead of having one delegation show up at the State Department this week and another delegation showing up next week.
Well, let's hope that those of us who believe in a free and independent Ambazonia, who are the overwhelming majority, would speak at least with one voice. As far as federalists and unionists are concerned, I do not see a day in which we speak with one voice, but of course we do believe they have right to their own opinion and they have right to share it. But this is a problem. It is when they speak for federalism or whatever thing other than independent, we simply consider them as Cameroonians, no longer Ambazonians. But let me take you a little bit to something else. The focus, I don't know if you listen to my talking point, I mentioned Cameroon focusing on using America Peace Institute and the Swiss peace to negotiate. We had a conversation recently with somebody from, very, very highly situated in the government in La République du Cameroon, and they have insisted there is no mediation in which the Swiss government is the mediator. They prefer to go with the Swiss peace. They prefer to go with the American Institute for Peace. And when they do this, they are bringing federalists together to build peace for peace capacity building. When the international community says dialogue without preconditions, isn't it exactly what they are trying to do here?
Well, okay, I have to say, I personally think very highly of the U.S. Institute for Peace, and I'm engaged on a project with them related to West Africa. Here's the problem. Everybody has to say that they are in accordance and they want peace, because who is it that can say that what they want is war? I mean, that is absurd on the face of it. But if you're sitting there in the position of the Cameroonian government, what better way to confuse international opinion than to pursue lots and lots of different avenues and lots of forum, because then what you're doing is you're engaging in a process just to engage in a process. This is basically what the Russians have done leading up to the events in Ukraine, where they were having meetings just for the sake of meetings. So here again, I have to say that the Cameroonian community needs to get their act together so that they can be dealing from a position of unity, at least where it comes to the objectives of what they want for the citizens of Southern Cameroon. It would be very powerful if a delegation that represents groups that want a federation, groups that want a confederation, groups that want an independent Ambazonia, to show up together to say, we may disagree on how we want to get there, but this is what we want for the citizens of Southern Cameroon, is their basic human rights, their basic human dignity, to have the same rights and privileges, to be able to use their English language, to have their Anglo-Saxon form of justice, and on and on and on. So I think that there are a lot of these important
Ambassador, I think that agreement is there. That agreement is there. But then there is a point you can't walk beyond, the point of the form of state.
Yeah, that's right. And at that point, you guys have to decide which points win. Remember, I always come back to the American Revolution. The great majority of Americans at the time wanted to continue the union with England. The people who wanted independence for the United States of America represented a minority. But the English undertook a series of acts which made it intolerable. And literally, month by month, more people switched from one point of view to the other. From my observation of what's been going on in Cameroon, it's been a very similar situation. But the Cameroon government, by its own attitude, ineptness, is driving more and more people into favoring independence. Unfortunately, I have not seen any polls. I have not seen any data. Some people tell me that the great majority want independence. Other people say, oh, no, the great majority still want federation. I have no information on which to base the conclusion.
Well, I really think nobody needs a poll to know that the overwhelming majority of Ambazonians, Southern Cameroonians, they want their own country. They have manifested that in their resilience for the past 5 years, and they are not going to give up. And I think that is proof enough. And again, if anybody ever doubt that Ambazonians want their own country, maybe how about a referendum to see where they want to go, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you, and as you know, I have said before that Ambazonians are going to end up getting what they want. It may take a long time. There's going to be, maybe incredible suffering, but you cannot put out the flame of liberty. You cannot put out the flame of wanting freedom. And I regret that, other countries don't see that. But, the United States of America worked very, very hard for its independence. It was a full court press. We engaged in England. We engaged in France. We engaged on the battlefield. And at the end of the day, you look what's happened to our country. So, as I said, when you looked at the Vietnam War and you saw the France and the United States aligned against these, Vietnamese unarmed, uneducated peasants, who would have thought that they were the ones who were going to win? It's the will to win. It's the human spirit, which at the end of the day, wins great victories. Look and see what the Ukrainians are doing now.
Ambassador, you speak with a lot of confidence again and again through your tweets that Ambazonian people at the end of the day will win this war. What informs your optimism? Is it the regime in Yaoundé capability to run the country and negotiate, or is it the fortitude of the Ambazonian people?
To me, it's history. That's part of it. Part of it is as you said, the fortitude of the people and their refusal to give up. And unfortunately, part of it all is also on how the Cameroonian government has reacted to all of this. They have not taken it seriously. They have tried to paper over, these issues with what I call Band-Aids for a very sorely bleeding wound. They've come up with a decentralization which has not been serious. They've engaged in processes which, from my point of view, has only been to have a process just for the sake of having a process. So if you have somebody on one side who is not serious and does not understand the fundamentals of the problem, and on the other side you have a very passionate group that is just not going to give up, I think the outcome is clear. The question is, when do we get to that outcome?
What is the connection with history that I just heard you mention?
Well, like I said, I've looked at the Viet Cong in Vietnam. I've looked at other liberation struggles. I've looked at the Cubans. I've looked at our own country, the Americans, where on one side you have an underarmed but a very passionate group that is not going to give up, and you have on the other hand, in many respects, a foreign power that does not understand fully the culture of what's behind the movement.
And that foreign power in this case would be French Cameroon or is it France?
Well, I would say, unfortunately, even with it's in the same country, that in some respects, the Cameroonian government is as clueless as a foreign power would be.
Ambassador, you are an expert here, and we have this situation where you have the Americans on one side, the French on the other side. They are all allies that would not really want to go against each other. But you find this situation in the Cameroons where we believe America would want to step up and say, hey, stop that. But the French are a problem. How can, as a diplomat, as an experienced somebody, how can America go past this, or any other country in that matter that would want to support Ambazonia go past this?
If I was right now a diplomat representing Southern Cameroon, I would certainly follow your advice and use this recent military cooperation between Cameroon and Russia as an opportunity to, both in Paris and in Washington, to say, you consider the government of Cameroon your ally. Look what your ally is doing, signing agreements with somebody who is in the world to make your life miserable. So, this is an opportunity. If the Cameroon community lets this pass up, then I'm sorry.
And how about the French? Do you see any opening, any in-door for Ambazonia to walk up to the French and say, hey, listen, there was Senegambia. Senegambia walked away. They never cut you off. Look at what Russia is trying to do in Cameroon. Look at what they have done in Central Africa. Look at what they have done in Mali. And now, again, they are trying to do something in... Do you think the French will be maybe open to say, let's listen to these Ambazonian people?
Yeah, you just made some great talking points. Give it to your representatives, and especially see what happens in the elections, in the French elections. Because if it goes one way, then that's one set of points. If it goes in the other way, then it's going to be a lot tougher.
Well, Ambassador, thank you so very much for showing up with me again today. I really appreciate it. And by the way, President Trump is really so much in the headlines, and I see him going back to the White House. I hope you get back there. He wants to get there.
We'll see. One never knows what happens. Only God knows, right?
Absolutely.
Take care. All the best. God bless Cameroon as always.
Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it. You have a great day, sir.
You too.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador TIBOR Nash there. I believe you have heard him. You have listened to him, and the choice is your own with what you make with that interview with Ambassador Nash. All right, let's get back to some other issues, ladies and gentlemen. Going on in Ambazonia. As I stated from the beginning of this show, you look at the newspapers in La République du Cameroon. It is all routes leading to Indian County, all Indian Conference for Return to Peace, development in view. Ladies and gentlemen, a return to peace in Indian and All that is in view, they say, is development. Could this be the power that is in Iya Marianta, ladies and gentlemen? Could this coming conference in India be emanating from the influence, the power that Iya Marianta wears as the president of Ambazonia? Now, you will all recall that in the recent time, there have been quite a number of attacks in India from Ambazonia restoration forces. You recall the delegates, the 6 delegates up to today. We don't know where they are. And then you recall the attacks of only, I think, about a month ago, where the DO, the mayor, and I think 2 of their military guys were also ambushed by Ambazonia restoration forces in India. And now, Dion Ngute, who has not been to his own backyard for how long? You know why? Because there are no roads to the place, has now scheduled this All-Indian Conference. All-Indian Conference, and guess what is on the agenda? Return to peace and development in view. This is what always happens with this La République du Cameroon so-called elite. They wait until they are threatened and then they jump to the bandwagon preaching development, promising you, oh, we're going to fix that road, we're going to tar that road, we're going to open schools, we're going to bring you electricity, we're going to do that, we're going to do this. For 5 years and counting. Ladies and gentlemen, when this war began out of the neglect of the southern Cameroons, for 5 years and counting, Bamenda has no access road. And they want anybody in India to believe that John Ngute is coming there to promise the tarring of the road from Komba to Ekondo Titi or Indiano, isn't it? Would anybody in India believe it? Of course not. Of course not. So this thing about India, I really want to hope that Ambazonia restoration forces are ready to take them out. Ready to take them out. Take out John Ngute. You took out the DOs. You took out the mayors. You took out their military. This is not beyond your reach. You can take all of them out. And let the report get to Yaoundé that you took down John Ngute in his own backyard. Ladies and gentlemen, peace will not, if you live in India, let me tell you, peace is not coming to India without this war over. Peace is not returning anywhere in Ambazonia when La République du Cameroon hasn't negotiated for anything. They're talking about peace. How about your homes they have destroyed? Your soldiers burnt down. How about your children, your husbands, your brothers and sisters, their soldiers killed? How can you have peace without justice being done to these things? So, ladies and gentlemen, the so-called All-Indian Conference is dead on arrival. It is dead on arrival. If you live Indian, do not believe for a second that the war is over and peace is coming. I hope you listen to my talking point today. La République du Cameroon wants the world to believe now peace is coming. Now you saw their gathering in Yaoundé with their elite, ladies and gentlemen. You saw their gathering in Yaoundé with their elites. Take a look here. That is it. That is Dion Ngute with the elite. They come together. They want the world to believe. They want the war. Peace is finally coming. Look at them. Ladies and gentlemen, these are people who cannot even go to their own homes. If they want the world to believe that peace is about to return, they should be asked to return home first. They should be asked to return to their homes first. ladies and gentlemen. Let Tabe Tando return. In fact, he is a chief. Tabe Tando is a chief in his village. And they're running around talking about peace, and they cannot live in their own homes. If they want Ambazonians to believe that peace is coming, and challenge them to go back to their palaces and to their homes, then everybody will follow them. I attended a meeting about a few weeks ago, and some people were just talking about peace returning to the BLM, people returning to the BLM, schools returning to the BLM. And I asked the question, the elite that live outside of the BLM, let them start returning home before we know peace has returned. Don't send people to go ahead and die, not in the hands of Ambazonia fighters, in the hands of La République du Cameroon soldiers, and then you stay at the peripheries and say peace has come. I read an article in which Paul Atanganji is talking about 110,000 internally displaced have returned to their bases. What a lie that it is. Ambazonians, the conference that you are hearing of in Indian isn't going to be the first one. There will be a conference in Momo. There will be a conference in Manu. There will be a conference in the BLM. There will be a conference everywhere, possibly in all the 13 counties, to preach peace and development. Preach peace and development. When this war started, they rushed about talking about reconstruction. Let me ask you, who want to believe their charade called peace? What have they done about that reconstruction? Nothing has been done. They went to Bamenda, broke the streets, and said they were widening the streets. What happened to that? Nothing has happened to that. Bamenda looks like an abandoned city today. Nothing has happened to that. Nothing has happened to Kumba, Indian, Ikondo Titi Road. And they talk about reconstruction. Paul Tasson circled the place, made errands in Bamenda and in Boya, preaching reconstruction. Is over 2 years today. And where is the reconstruction? It did not happen. Why would you believe them now? If you are in India or in Manu, in everywhere they want to organize this peace parade, why would you believe them that they can bring peace when they are not able to bring an end to this war, when they cannot sit down on the table to negotiate? I talked about this in my monologue. La République du Cameroon is saying, we don't want the Swiss government, we don't want Swiss HD in anything negotiations. They pick and choose the American Peace Institute and the Swiss Peace, ladies and gentlemen. They prefer them. In other words, they are about dictating who sits on the table in any form of negotiation. That should tell you that La République du Cameroon is not ready. Of course, if I were part of those going to sit on that table or meet with them, I would say that you don't dictate to us. You have no power to dictate to us who sits on the table from outside or as a mediator. We choose, we decide who sits on that table, not La République du Cameroon. So, but what we hear and what we see is the indication, the proof that La République du Cameroon is not ready for peace. And how about signing military alliances with Russia? Does that seem like somebody who is about to negotiate peace? Signing a military pact with Russia to get Russia weapons and Russia money to do what? To fight and kill our people. And you want to believe that this their agenda of peace is for real? It is not. Ambazonians, listen to the sound of my voice. The only thing that will save us in this war is firepower. I don't know why any divisional officer of La République du Cameroon should still be in Victoria, should still be in Kumba, should still be in Bamenda, should still be anywhere in that territory. They are governors, they are military, and the funniest thing is that These, their military, including the police, they live within you in the community. And you protect them. And when they leave the house, they leave the community, they get to the road, they kill your brothers, they kill your sisters. And you'll just leave them and then walk back home and they live in the neighborhood with you and you can do nothing. The moment has come that every Ambazonian begins to think, becomes very creative as to how to fight this war, go after La République du Cameroon military and their institutions in Ambazonia. It is only when the world begins to see the devastation, the kind of devastation that we see in Ukraine, in Ambazonia, that they begin to take us seriously. Military power. La République fears that because it takes a lot of money. Inflation is killing the country now because of our sabotage, economic sabotage policy. We must engage these things without giving any space. Take out everything La République du Cameroon. Take out everything, their institution. I said here last week, I don't understand why we still have the Biag Bank standing there in Limbe, just window dressing when it does nothing there. I don't know why it still stands there. All these, their social insurance and the courts and the governor's office, the treasury and so on. They should be taken down. They should be taken down. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are in India, I'd like you to know that no peace is returning to India. John Gute can make 10 trips to India in 1 week or in 1 month. Peace will not follow him there. Peace will not follow him there. I just want to pray and wish that Ambazonia restoration fighters, the boys of Field Marshal 10 Kobo, will take care of Dion Ngute and his towels who are going there with him. All the CPDM cronies and regime cronies from India, I just hope that you make no return. You make no return from that trip to India at the weekend. I hope if you meet your Waterloo over there. Now, let me take you to another subject, ladies and gentlemen, talking about Chairman John Frundi. I'd like you to listen to this clip here. Please listen to this clip here, please. Listen to it. This is John Frundi at CRTV. He was speaking at CRTV. He was asked what it will take, what should happen for the war to be over. Listen to it, please.
We have a very important personality. We've succeeded to connect to the national chairman of the Social Democratic Front, Frundi, John Frundi, whom I'm told is on the line. Chairman, we are happy to have you on Press Hour today.
Issues that are plaguing our country.
Yes, Chairman, I'm going to ask you what is the contribution of political parties, especially the Social Democratic Front, that you are the national chairperson. What is the Social Democratic, what are political parties doing in general, and what is the Social Democratic Front doing in particular to end the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions?
When you ask about the contributions of political parties, when we started off, we were working together. But today, the SDF found ourselves alone on the field among the opposition parties. And nonetheless, we still continue with the spirit of 1990, that we came up with a program that we wanted to sell to Cameroonians, and we sold this program and they bought it, and that's why the SDF candidate was voted in the elections of 1992.
Man, the SDF is credited for bringing reforms to the electoral system in the country, especially the transparent ballot boxes.
Yeah, well, the ballots they're transparent, but the rigging has not stopped. Because I remember one elections in Santa, people ironed ballot papers in envelopes and were putting 10 ballot papers at a time and all the like. When I caught up with this, I called the man who was running around then, trying to manage the elections for the other parties, that you should come, let me give him 10 envelopes, and he puts them into the ballot box to tie together the...
I thought I was going to get to the point where Frundi says all Ambazonia diaspora leaders should be arrested and extradited to La République du Cameroon as his solution to an end to this war. Now, this is John Frundi, the man who only about 30 years ago was seen as the savior of Cameroon. The man whose name, if you mention anywhere in any negative way, you could be stoned. He was revered, he was worshipped, and suddenly, 30 years after, John Frundi has made a full U-turn, has escaped Bamenda, cannot live in Bamenda, lives in Yaoundé. He sneaks into Bamenda, and even when he does under a severe military guard. And sometimes he's even paid to go there, as in the case when Dion Gute was heading for Bamenda, ladies and gentlemen. Frundi says, I so much love La République du Cameroon that instead for Cameroon to divorce with Southern Cameroons, the diaspora leaders should be arrested and extradited to La République du Cameroon. What a terrible, what a disgrace that John Frundi became to Ambazonia. John Frundi may live and die in Yaoundé, ladies and gentlemen, and that will be the end of him. But I really wish that the people who still follow him out there understand that Frundi long lost his relevance in the body politics of that damn country called Cameroon. He is just sitting there being used. He's a comfort woman, essentially, a comfort woman in the hands of La République du Cameroon. When Dion Gute is flying to Bamenda, he gives a phone call and says, Mr. John, can you join me to Bamenda? And John says, how much will be the pay? And Dion Gute pays the bees and he joins him to Bamenda. That is the rule of a comfort woman comforting Dion Gute in Bamenda. That is how irrelevant John Frundi has become to the people. Let me assure John Frundi that no one diaspora leader will be extradited to that damn country, because none of us here lives in a banana republic like yours, where people can be picked up and dumped behind bars in solitary confinements without judgment. It will never happen here, sir. And that is what we hope you were going to teach Cameroon. That was who we thought you were. If you had taken power in that country, it is very unfortunate you now sit there and you say that the same people who stood with you, who marched on the streets with you, who shouted Papa, Lay, and so on, it is the same people you are now saying they should be extradited for punishment, for imprisonment in Yaoundé. Please, you are tired. Leave it to the young generation. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I go to the last point in this broadcast, and I will call it a day. Now, about what is going on in the interim government. The interim government continues to build. Now everybody should know, ladies and gentlemen, that Iya Marianta took over a government that needed to be rebuilt from square one, from the bottom up. And so that is what she has been doing. Within 1 month, she's created the cabinet. The cabinet is now putting itself together. Fundraising is being made, with which you will see action on ground zero. Many of you are saying that, but things are looking slow. For real, they're looking slow. But it takes time to raise the money with which to carry out the projects that we all want to see happen on ground zero. The only thing I can assure you is that action. This government knows nothing than action. Diplomacy comes behind action on ground zero. We all know that. All that we ask is that be patient. Be patient. We need to raise funds. We need to raise funds. And we are raising it. You will see action. In the meantime, Samuel Komesako is in the news. He is asking, he is planning for a third draft. A third draft. Now remember, he is still living in the he is still living in the delusion that he is still the president of Ambazonia. He forgets. He and his followers have forgotten. He was not only impeached, because you can be impeached but not removed, but he was impeached and removed. Now, he is calling for a third draft, planning for a third draft. I think that's supposed to be, they're planning it for next month. Fellow Ambazonians, for how long can you be made fools? For how long do you want to be made fools by a man whom we have established is a con man? If you do not believe in anything that I have said and others have said, you watch the video from Brazil. The man handing out churches. The man who became known as Charles Dinga. In fact, even today, ladies and gentlemen, I am beginning to think that Sako's name may not actually be Samuel Komesako. They may not be his true names. He was Charles yesterday from Togo. He was John Dinga the other day from Cameroon. Now we know him as Samuel Komesako. Those may not really be his real names. So if you do not believe in anything that we have told you from this interim government, remember that video from Brazil, and remember the video of the landlord in Victoria reprimanding him for telling lies, ladies and gentlemen. But above all, how long does he have to take your money before you demand for that accountability? Samuel Komesako decided not to step down because an audit was called for upon him. Who is auditing him? How can you give him any more dime for somebody who says, I don't want you to audit me. I just need to spend your money. I just need your money to also pay my rent and live life and live big and live good. But you don't have to ask me for an audit. When an audit is brought on, he breaks the government. Go and form a pseudo so-called House of the People, what? In the government. A government that says to him, don't be worried about election, okay? You will never be removed until you get to Boya. I don't know who is taking him to Boya. But this is the point, fellow Ambazonians. You cannot be fools again and again and again and again from one man. From one man. The man somewhere, Komesako, must be audited. Must be audited. Lava Storm 1, Lava Storm 2, Lava Storm 3, Draft 1, Draft number 2, President's Corner, all the monies that went into his pocket. Ladies and gentlemen, an audit, whether he is president or not, an audit is demanded. And by the way, the Restoration Council, I understand, finished the audit that was sanctioned by that body. I don't know why the Restoration Council is not putting out the result of that audit. What are you covering? What are you hiding? It should be out. For immediately it was done. That audit should be out. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, I am going to call it a day here. I will open this phone for just about 10 minutes. The luckiest person can get through with the phone call. So go ahead and make the phone calls. The number will be here on the line for you to call. The numbers will be here for those of you who have the numbers. Go ahead and make the phone call to let me hear what you are thinking today. All right. Okay, I got the first caller in here. Hello. Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you 515, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Norway. This is TIBOR, we call Candida.
Oh, Canada. Norway. Yes, sir. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing fine, and you?
Beautiful. What is in your mind?
Yeah, the first thing is that I want to really appreciate you for taking time and spicing the day with this diplomacy through communication. What you are doing there is diplomacy through communication. Thank you for your guest, and thank you for all the time you've taken to put this material together.
Thank you.
There's a lot of stuff in your monologue. I don't know which one we have to take home and which one we have to go for rehearsal, but there's a lot of good stuff in your monologue. First thing first, Dion Gute is trying to do the charade or the facade in Indian because of Eya Maratha's presence as the president of the interim government.
Correct.
So that goes to tell you that sometime we need this change. We need to move this thing around so that at least every county or every region too should be mobilized. So at least taking the presidency to Indian is already shaking the Indian community and even shaking the position of Dion Gute. So it is a good thing for those who don't see that change is a good thing. That is a good thing, at least for the start, for the basic minimum.
Absolutely.
So, the have said a lot of things for us today. I wish and I hope our Foreign Affairs Department have taken down some notes. He has cleared a lot of doubts that we had, even some wranglings that we had in the social media. I think he has helped to clear that out. So if the Foreign Department has taken some note, kudos. And we thank you very much, Secretary Chris. I know we are going through some challenges. We hope that God will bless you and you find a way around it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the call. I appreciate that. All right. Let's get to the next caller here from Ground Zero. All right. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from, please?
From Bamenda. I'm calling from Bamenda.
Okay. And what is your contribution?
Yes, I begin with the so-called draft being prepared by Sako. To me, that draft is a scheme to cover up the money that has been stolen in the past. A lot of money has been given to Sako to cover up so that he will have to find the excuse to start using the money as if it has been given to him by the draft he's starting. But I don't see any Ambazonia giving him a dime. So that should just
that is the message we are sending to every Ambazonian. Do not give a dime to Ekome Sako until he sits under an audit. Until he sits under an audit and give account of all the money Ambazonians have given him for the past 2 years. All the war droughts, all the lava storms, so on and so forth. He cannot run away from the people and also run away from giving accountability. They were shouting, Chris Anu, Chris Anu, Chris Anu, here in, day out. Oh, he's running from an audit. I have been there. I challenge Sako to sit down for an audit. If he doesn't, ladies and gentlemen, of course, he's already a done deal. But he should not come to you surreptitiously asking for money when he has never given you an account of what he took before. Go on, sir.
Yes, thank you. Okay, then I appreciate what you said about that provocation in Diam. It is the occasion for our fighters to vanish, to exterminate that evil group that has been going around sponsoring the agenda of these Francophones instead of supporting us. And then about the situation in Ambazonia, I for one, I've always been convinced that if Ambazonians are serious, we don't need any external influence. We don't need anybody to help us. We'll do this thing. I'm on ground zero. I have assessed the military, the Francophone military, and they are no match for us if we just unite. In a matter of months, this thing will be over. The same thing applies for Africa. Africa should not blame anybody for not helping them. We have more than half of the resources of this world. More than half arable land of the world belongs to Africa. Why are we suffering? Because we don't love each other. Because we are not serious. If we are serious, we will rule the world. We will rule the world as simple as ABC. So we should not blame people. We should blame ourselves for not loving ourselves, for not being serious, for not being nationalistic.
All right. We will get there, sir. We will get there. They say Rome was not built in a day. We certainly will get there. I think we're getting better and better. I am really looking forward to some form of collaboration that can get us, at least those fighting, those with fighting groups on the ground, speaking with one voice. Thank you, sir. Let me give the opportunity for others to call.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Okay. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Secretary Chris.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. I know you are calling from the USA.
Yes, Secretary Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to educate the Ambazonian people and to talk to us about what is going on the ground. But one thing I want to tell you, you mentioned something there about the Ambazonian people meeting with the French government and other dignitaries. I'll tell you, in early 2020, there was a conference call that we had. It was just three of us, and I and one friend and the outgone President Sako. This guy had a proposal to President Sako and said, look, I have this opening. I'll bring the French foreign minister. I'll bring the president of DRC and the president of Kenya. Let's have some discussions. But after that discussion, Sako went back and said, this guy is trying to look for prominence and he's not going to follow up on that deal. And that was it. This my guy is a very good friend of mine, and he would not even want to listen to anything Ambazonian because he was so furious after bringing something that was this juicy that could lead us to some area in this revolution. So I'll tell you, some of those openings have been closed because of the actions of the outgone president.
Well, I know exactly what you are talking about because I cannot tell you right here some of the things that we discussed and some of the things that I personally took to the impeach and remove president, what we were trying to do with the French. But again, apparently, he always agreed for everything. I mean, I can go into some details. Some of those things we will discuss with the people at the foreign department. But let's leave it there. Thank you for the call.
Thank you, Secretary Chris.
All right. Thank you. All right. Let's see. San Antonio. Hello, sir.
Hello, Secretary Chris. This is Ephraim calling from San Antonio, Texas.
All right.
Yes, I listened to your conversation there with Mr. TIBOR NAGY.
Yes.
And amongst a number of questions that came to my mind, I have this one. How politically active have the Ukrainians been in the United States prior to this conflict? I don't think they were any more active than Ambazonians were. I set that aside. I will say this to all Ambazonians and all lovers of ABS TV. It is on a day like this that we get to appreciate people like you, somebody like you, Secretary Chris. On a day like this, knowing what is on your shoulders, you are here fighting for Ambazonia. If Ambazonians, ABS TV lovers, if you are listening to me, this person we call the anchorman, he has bags and bags of load on his shoulders today, but he is here fighting for Ambazonia. Please rally around. Rally around. And I'm here announcing that there will be a fundraiser for ABS TV on Friday. You may say the day is coming at short notice, but we couldn't help it. And the time that we're going to schedule is at about 11 p.m. Amber time. It's inconvenient. Yes, it's inconvenient to people in the U.S. and the people across the Atlantic, but that was the best we could do. Please, please rally around and let's do something for this service. Let's do something for this service, for ABS TV. But I also draw your attention to this. The person you have sitting on your screen now and talking, the anchorman, is a person you should appreciate today more than ever before. If you know what is on his shoulders, you will do it. Please, and let's do our own little to support him. Thank you.
All right, thank you, comrade. Let me just chip this in, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I will not come and sit here and be telling you what is going on in my own family, but you have not seen me for quite a number of days. Is because of sickness in the family, and in fact I would not be here today if I had not scheduled this interview with TIBOR NAGY a few weeks behind. But I will not of course come here and be telling you, oh, this is what is going on, this is what is going on. I just hope that you will support ABS, join the Zoom meeting on Friday to support ABS, as the last caller has said, and maybe you will know what is going on when you get into that meeting. Thank you. Let me get to this caller. This is Belgium. Hello. Hello. This must be the great Sama Thomas. Yes.
Yeah, this is Sama Thomas. It's good evening and what is good afternoon.
Thank you, sir. Good evening for you.
Thanks very much for bringing us TIBOR NAGY again to come and enlighten us on what to do. What I want to dwell on is Mr. Mr. Chris.
Okay.
What I've been doing in the IG with the ex-president for the past 2 years is, there was an article in the SDF Constitution, Article 8, Sub 2. That article, through the nose, no other article in the SDF Constitution other than that article. If Frundi sees you as a threat, Frundi will use Article 8, Sub 2 against you to remove you from the party of the SDF. And that was exactly what Sako was doing to destroy the IG. I told the point, pointed out to people, nobody was listening. But thank God, all of us have come to realization, and Sako is now history. May God bless us all, never to allow a person like Sako again to derail us and destroy our revolution. Thank you.
Thank you. That will never happen for as long as some of us are still part of this struggle. You can take that to the bank. Thank you, sir, for the call.
Yep.
All right. Let's see who is next on the line. Right, Ground Zero. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Secretary Chris, good evening.
Good evening, sir. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mezam County.
Okay, and what is the contribution, sir?
Yeah, I want to thank you first for the services you are rendering to us. Thank you for bringing up the ambassador to come and give us more insight into the revolution. I want to thank God for what the American government is doing. I think is very much appreciated. I want to say something. Please, if there is a possibility for the president of Ambazonia to reunite these people, that is what TIBOR has just suggested, that if people who are fighting for the independence will come together and speak as one man, then that will be a way forward. If Madam Iya Marenda, the president, will be able to do this for us, I think that we will be very happy. Number two, I want to say that Nation Only is not anybody to be talked about here again in Northwest or in Ambazonia. Truly is gone.
He doesn't even live there anymore. He can't step there, right?
Yeah, no, he cannot come here. Yes. Whatever Froni is doing now is struggling to appease the La Republique so that he can find a way to stay probably in peace. Even though he's old as one who is supposed to die, he is still afraid to die. And that is why he will go on air instead of speaking truth to power. He will try to keep himself alive by destroying what he ought to have been the one struggling after.
All right. Thank you, sir. We get a message. Let's see if we can get to other callers. Thank you for the call.
You're welcome.
All right. Let us see who is next on the line. Still ground zero. Okay. Hello. Before you call, ladies and gentlemen, turn down the volume of your set. All right. Hello.
Yes, hello, Secretary Grace. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. May I know where you're calling in from, please?
I'm calling from Germany. I want to appreciate you for bringing TIBOR again. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to ask him a question. But I think the question I can ask it to you, I have two questions for you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, the first question is, you have been engaging him. He has also been talking to Ambazonians through other channels. The first question is, don't you think that have you made any attempt to ask him if he can accept a mediation role, because he knows Ambazonians so well and he knows the La Republique people so well, since he is an expert in African affairs and he worked in Yaoundé? That's the first question. If you have asked him that direct question.
Do you really think La Republique will trust him to be a mediator, going by the things he's been writing against them on Twitter?
Well, it's just a question I'm asking, because he knows both sides. A mediator actually would know both sides, and he's an expert in African affairs.
La Republique knows he's biased. He loves Ambazonia.
Excuse me, sir.
I said La Republique knows he is biased. He loves Ambazonia.
Okay, well, then if that's the answer, fine. I would have loved to ask him directly if he would answer the question. Now, the second question is, You have worked for 3 IGs, I think Seseko, Sako, and now under Marianta. Don't you think after 5 years or 4 years of IG work, you should rather be presenting us, or one of these governments should be presenting us somebody that they are signing a deal with, instead of coming to analyze what La Republic is signing with other people?
I'm sorry, I should be representing what?
No, I'm asking that 5 years of IG work, or 4 years, maybe if I consider the Seseko IG, the Sako IG, and now under Marianta.
Yeah.
It's a long time that I'll be expecting that all these governments should rather be presenting who they are signing a deal with for Ambazonia, rather than coming to analyze what La Republic is signing with other people. So the question is, why is it that for 5 years, you guys have not been able to find somebody with whom Ambazonia can sign a deal with?
Well, that's a good
get somebody who.
That's a good question.
Let me answer the question. Ask the question first. I'm not to quarrel you. Just a question, sir.
Yeah, I know. I'm answering. It's a good question. I wish we could sit here.
10 years for Ambazonia to get somebody to sign a deal with. 20 years. 5 years is a long time, and all of you guys, a lot of them.
Okay, hold on. Let me take the question now. Don't worry. I'm not dropping you. It's a good question.
Yeah,
it's a good question and a legitimate one. I wish we could sit on television and discuss the things that we do with diplomacy. Unfortunately, we can't do that on the television. That would not be doing justice to our cause. But I want you to know that we tried quite a number of those things. Unfortunately, we had a leader who sat on his butt in Washington, D.C., as we heard from the last caller. If somebody was trying to do something, it became a popularity contest as to who takes the glory. You heard him saying, I wanted him to go to Somaliland and be killed. But I have been there. I wasn't killed. He couldn't go there. So please, unfortunately, it's a good question, but it's not something we can talk on television. Hello.
Okay, well, then from your answer, it means that you now see with your new government maybe a new playing field where maybe you would be able to do more effective diplomacy.
We will definitely do that. We will definitely do that. But I must tell you that the number one priority is the kind of firepower that we see on ground zero, because you knock doors to somebody and say, hey, support our independence struggle, and they've never heard about you, about what is going on in your country. You can knock it 100 times. You're wasting your time, right?
Of course, but I would say rather than analyzing La Republique, what they are signing, we should make our own effort to sign our own deals.
Of course. Should we come here and announce our own deal? La Republique announce their own? Of course not.
Well, okay, well, I just wish we should. It's 5 years and we cannot be analyzing La Republique and not doing our own.
We will. Again, if we had a leader who was not sitting on his butt but actually going out, we would have signed something. You listen to the ambassador to Ecuador, who had arranged everything, and all that was left was for Sako to go there and sign the deal. He sat on his butt and went nowhere. Thank you for the call, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
All right. I have 1 minute to go, ladies and gentlemen. Let me see who is the last caller here. Go ahead and put in that call. So many missed calls. Unfortunately, I can't pick every call. I can't pick every call. Okay, this is the last caller calling from ground zero. Hello.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. May I know where you're calling from, please?
Yeah, I'm calling from Victoria.
Okay. What is in your mind, sir?
Okay, so I salute your efforts.
Thank you.
But a grain of make a pot of food. So all we want from you people is to unite, because now you are on your own platform, you are singing the same song. Ayaba is on its own platform, they are singing the same song just as you are doing. So the thing is so confusing. Hello?
Hello, I'm hearing you. Go on.
Yes, so we really love if you people can come together and unite, so that you people can talk as one on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Let's hope that happens.
Okay, so that will be our priority.
All right. Thank you. You have a great day. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this will be the end of this broadcast today. And as you heard from, I think the third, one of the callers a few moments ago, if you do not see me coming on TV, know that I am doing just okay, but I am taking care of some emergencies here at my end. And when it comes to family, you cannot put family aside for anything, not at all. So that is one of the reasons you may not see me coming up as frequently as I used to do. But when you don't see me, don't think that, oh, Secretary Chris is gone, he's done. No, until we get to Boya. And remember, I also asked for a caterpillar. It hasn't come yet. So just to let you know, we are together, and we will keep on going after La République to Cameroon together. I will be back here very soon. God giving us the grace. And please remember the fundraiser for ABS on Friday. I believe that the link will be sent out to you. Please come out, support ABS, support ABS, so that we can keep on bringing you programming here. Even if you don't see me, you will see the other presenters with updates on the struggle. I think tomorrow Mike Fusi is coming up with a war room. So please be looking forward to that tomorrow. And please remain safe and strong for all of you on Ground Zero. This war is not going anywhere soon until we have arrived, Boya. And you heard TIBOR Natch said Ambazonia is winning this war. It didn't come from me. It came from someone who is also a critic of what we do. And we will get there. Please remain strong, remain steadfast, remain resilient and courageous. God bless you all, and good night.